To start with, I'm Jeff Clavier. I'm the managing partner of SoftTech VC, and I've been investing in the consumer internet space for about 6 years, so before Web2 existed. Did that first as an angel, and after that as a VC. I raised my own fund about 2.5 years ago, and I've done 47 investments in 2.5 years, which makes me one of the busiest guys around in terms of investing. And I've really sort of tried to figure out what was, the raw components of success for a company to start from nothing and a concept and a product to something which will eventually attract, hopefully, millions of users and make billions of dollars. And what I've learned clearly is that, it's not a question of right brain or left brain or PR or matrix or whatever. It's actually how you can actually combine those two in a successful sort of recipe. And the only way sort of to figure that out is to try and iterate very quickly around, different ideas and components. The panel really is around PR and buzz and how you can create successful companies and successful strategies to drive people to your product. The thought I want to really share with you is that you really want to sort of do that at the right time in your product sort of build up, because there's nothing worse than a PR campaign or getting some buzz too early when you're not ready for it. And all those things we talked about, which are landing pages and split testing and A/B testing and so on and so forth, this is something that you want to have done before starting to generate PR, because sometimes you're going to end up with 100,000 users coming on your site and you're not ready for it, and so you just wasted an opportunity. So we'll try and address that. A couple of thoughts around the iPhone. I've been lucky to work with Tapulous, which is the maker of TapTap Revenge, which is one of the largest applications on the iPhone platform. And very often we talk about iPhone, but it's also the iPod Touch. So those guys have over 20 million installs across the 60, 80 million units which have been sold so far. And what I can tell you without any doubt is that there's no ounce of virality on that platform at all. Just because Apple does their utmost to actually hide all the information about the user and the phone and so on and so forth from you, and therefore the only way for you to collect the email information is to actually get it. And so we have 20+ million users, and I'm not sure we have 1 million email addresses at Tapulous. Doesn't prevent us from being very successful and make a ton of money. So it's fine. So that's just to prove that you can, by being a really great app and getting a ton of positive PR, you can just go very, very high. You don't need virality, right? Obviously, if we had virality, we could do more. So we're trying to sort of tackle that in the new product, which will be announced soon. Oops, I didn't say that. I want to try and get you guys to comment around. So this is interesting because we have, by the way, that was this guy's PR. It's creating intent. That's what we did at Mint when we had those badges on blog saying, I want Mint, before the product was actually launched. So try and use any opportunity you have to be in front of an audience to pimp your companies or pimp what you do. That's what we do. So, Mark, Ben, we have sort of interesting people who have had a couple of crossed experiences. We have a former TechCrunch writer who's now an entrepreneur, and we have a banker or an ex-banker who's gone to Hollywood. Is that correct? And now you're actually in BD at Cafe Press, which is a very cool company. And so we're going to try and learn from them what has been their experience in terms of creating positive buzz and PR strategies around their own products or experiences, but also how you get on TechCrunch. Because number one of the PR 101 is get on TechCrunch for startups. We all know that, right? But how do you create an environment where you actually don't get the half-a-page mention, but the actual long thought article from Michael himself? And we'd love to have your views on that.
Sure. So the short answer of that is that you worked there first, which is what I did. Actually, so I don't know if you want to show the slide or not, but so the sort of the theme of what I wanted to talk about in general was that a lot of what I've done in terms of marketing has been very manual, and a confession I have to make actually is that my app is not viral yet, which is sort of embarrassing for me because we just heard about virality. But have you guys read Crossing the Chasm? Is that a book you guys have for your class? So the theory behind Crossing the Chasm is this sort of Bible in terms of tech marketing, is that there's sort of a bell curve when it comes to distribution of folks that are going to use your product. And the initial sort of left-hand side of that curve is the set of early adopters who will be the most prone to use your product and tell other people about it. And in Silicon Valley, there's a lot of us folks here because we live and breathe tech all day. So really my strategy from the onset was to capture sort of an early adopter mindset instead of going for sort of mainstream usage overnight. And so it's sort of a different philosophy than I think sort of more viral apps really take. And it's a bit more of a slow ramp up. And it's something that happened, or at least I was working on even before I had any PR on TechCrunch. So to give you a little bit of history, I left TechCrunch about a year ago now, and I was working on it for a good 6 to 8 months before I had any site up. Then I had about 2 or 3 months before I had any coverage. And even before I launched, much of the work I was doing was laying sort of the groundwork for people to be receptive to my product once it launched. And so I was very intent on letting people know my thought process behind what I was building and really having conversations with people, whether it was over lunch or over email or over Twitter, before I had anything to show them at all. And what it was is really trying to touch people on a level that made them interested personally in what I was doing so that they felt like they had some ownership in it. And then once we had the site up, so that actually you could use it, they were the first set of people to actually come on, tell their friends about it, to give me feedback, which is very, very important, that would start to get a little bit of buzz going. And this is back in October, November when we really just had a handful of people using it. But even that low level of buzz to start off with before launch was critical because when we finally had our sort of coming out in end of November on TechCrunch, we had sort of built sort of a fan base, even among 100 people who were early adopters in the Bay Area, who they're kind of like, oh great, like, you know, finally the site is now live and everyone can see it, and I feel like I have I feel like I'm part of it. And then they were, because I was legitimately trying to involve them in the process of creating the site. And after we launched, all of a sudden we had people checking it out. I mean, TechCrunch, what it does is it exposes you to a sort of a cluster of folks that are highly opinionated. They'll check out anything just to like kick the tires, and they'll tweet about you like mad. And so for the first 3 days after the coverage hit, we were just checking Twitter constantly and replying to people on Twitter. My sense is that most of you guys are new to Twitter, but it's a great conversational medium. So really all of my sort of customer efforts in the days ensuing the coverage was talking to folks on Twitter and basically trying to touch them, try to make them feel like I was there listening to them. And just even the simplest of things, you know, telling people thank you for your feedback or answering a question they may have, turn them into loyal users like instantly, and they wanted to go then tell their friends. And this was just very brute. This is sort of a brute force process where we just had to do it one by one. And the effect has been that we, within a month and a half, may not have millions and millions of users yet, but we have a lot of great people who are in the Bay Area who provide a concentration of what we want to build off of from here on out. And so it was very intentional. I didn't want to hit sort of the mainstream middle of America within the first few months. I wanted to sort of go, I guess, kind of how Twitter did initially, and get people who were going to be very, very engaged and who would love the product sort of on a daily basis before I sort of try to spread out from there. So it's sort of a different process than if you try to finely tune the app to be incredibly viral. Like, I don't ask you from the onset to invite 10 of your friends to come to the site, and so we don't have the same sort of viral effect. But when people start to fall in love with the product, they do go out and tell people on Twitter and on Facebook. And so the part in parentheses actually is, I put that in there because what we do is we leverage Facebook Connect and Twitter sign-in, which are very similar, in the core part of our product, so that people who use our site can easily then find other friends that they have from Facebook or Twitter on the site and essentially get in touch with them on my site by connecting, and they can also pump out information to those networks. And that lets them basically meet up with each other on this new platform and start to form a new bond in the environment that we're providing for them. And so they in turn amplify the effect that we've we sort of kickstarted in reaching out to people by then reaching out to each other. So that's the bulk of what I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ben?
Cool. Sure. So my name is Ben Katz. I run business development and partnerships for Cafe Press, the world's largest print-on-demand T-shirt site. So if you've ever seen a crazy Barack Obama T-shirt, or unfortunately a crazy Sarah Palin T-shirt, that probably came from our website. This is Paris Hilton, Nikki Hilton, Benji Madden, and David Katzenberg's son, I forget his name, Katzenberg, holding my product, the Etch Star, now known as the Coveroo, now that Microsoft bought it from us. Basically, we engrave the back of cell phones with really cool art, your name, your initials, and eventually other art, which I'll get to in a minute. Can you go to the text slide? So I live in Los Angeles. My background briefly, failed investment banker, hated it. I did not go to Stanford, my sister did, so it's an honor to be here. Went, after 2 years of investment banking, had paid off my debt, and went to Hollywood to make movies. I've produced 2 films. If you have Showtime and you're up late enough, you may get to catch them. It's not because they're Skinamax quality, but just where they choose to put the content you haven't heard of. We, however, made profitable movies, which is something not many producers can say. And I realized that making movies is not a good use of one's time if one's goal is to ultimately, create cash flow positive businesses with minimal effort. So I decided to migrate more towards the Silicon Valley business model, but I still made products. So we laser engraved iPods, cell phones, and at the time Apple was selling 100 million iPods a year. It was a really great medium on which to transmit art and create profit in the process. I have some thoughts on virality that are a little bit different than the kind of formulas that you've seen, because I sold something with like not a 100% gross profit margin, but rather like a 5 to 50% gross profit margin. I am jealous of anyone with a 100% profit margin, so I'm not trying to say that my way is better. In fact, it's worse. So there are a couple key tools if you want to create virality in any product, whether it's a digital product or a physical product. Number one is you've got to be selling. You've got to be out. You've got to be social. You've got to like people. I hate to say it. You have to take an interest in people and find out what they like, either about you, your product, or how that person might be helpful to you in spreading the gospel about your product. You have to be Billy Mays, RIP. And it doesn't mean you have to develop a Coke addiction and have a heart attack, but you do need to work as hard as a guy like that and have the intensity of a guy like that to get your message out. This means being LinkedIn. I just found out, even though I didn't know Dave McClure, that we have 14 friends in common while he was sitting talking, including the guy who ultimately bought my company, Carl Jacob, and dozens of other great people. If you don't actually have an inherent network because you're still a sophomore in college, that's totally fine. You're going to get there by going out, collecting business cards, going to trade shows that are pertinent to your industry, and ultimately getting to know people. But you can also cheat, and you can use Jigsaw, which is like LinkedIn for people without friends. And actually, I find, which is actually something I find to be just as useful as LinkedIn, because it actually takes time to get introductions on LinkedIn, whereas Jigsaw, you can just harass people. So Jigsaw is Rolodexes of everyone in the world, in case you don't know, and you pay a teeny bit to get access to them, and it's totally worth it. So you need to call people. You need to call hundreds of people a day to let them know about what you're trying to tell them. I personally am a believer in calling. Some people place banner ads. That's fine. Whatever it is, you need to get in people's face, and I think that's something that Dave and Ed talked to. Number two, celebrity seeding. A lot of you are interested in philanthropy. There is nothing better for celebrities than to be seen as charitable, right? They screw up, what do? They adopt a puppy, they save Haiti, whatever you want. Shepard Fairey, he infringed on some copyrights, and now he's making Haitian art for Cafe Press, and we're selling, I think in the last 6 days, we've raised something like $60,000 for Haiti. Half of that due to Shepard Fairey's art for Haiti. So very cool, powerful tool. Celebrities are great. You saw Paris Hilton. I don't think I would have sold my company if I didn't have that picture of her holding up my stuff. I also have Dustin Hoffman, William H. Macy, a little less sexy, Chloe Sevigny, more sexy. lots of other people, and Paris Hilton is viral in herself, as you might be aware. So she's a useful tool. Yeah, she's a three on the multipliers. Lots of retention.
Don't go there.
So all uses. My wife writes for Star Magazine, so we have a spreadsheet of celebrities and that sort of stuff. Third is you need to look big. Can you flip to the next page? Is that possible? You need to look big. So this is an internet startup that I started with literally less than 50 grand. Started with nothing but a $10 website and a daily candy hit, and we generated $10,000 off of that. And so we thought, hey, we're up to something. So that's an example of what Jeff said. Actually, be ready for the groundswell when it comes, because we weren't. We were really lucky that Jay-Z's stylist called us and had us do something on like $20,000 Prada crocodile briefcases, and so we made enough money off that to build a nice website. Thank you, Jay-Z. So how do I make myself look big? I work with Sanrio for Hello Kitty. I work with the NBA, the Lakers. I work with Marvel for superheroes. I work with Beyonce, right, and Shakira, and lots of other big names. Why does that matter? Because no one cares about Etch Star. They've never heard of it yet, but they've definitely heard of Shakira. They've definitely heard of something on my website that they want and that maybe they'll buy. So hang your hat on bigger partners. And that doesn't just mean from a marketing perspective, like the licensing deals that I cut. It also means distribution. So we power the engraving on Microsoft Zune, on the back of the Zune for the Zune Originals program. We power personalization at shop.blackberry.com. And so you need to find a way to get your product out, especially if it's a physical product, that's not just through your own means, because you're never going to reach enough people in your early days to get to a scale that you can actually employ the engineer that these guys said that you wanted to hire. Within this is a subset. Can you go to the next page? So you pander. Whenever you're in front of someone, you show them something you love. We license Stanford. I recommend you all go to coveroo.com/Stanford and buy one of these tonight. We have ones that fit your iPhone if you're an iPhone user. Any Nokia products, we carry hundreds of phone SKUs. You can buy one tonight. Okay? Can you go back 2 pages? Coveroo.com. So sleep with Bill Gates. We did a deal with the Beatles. Right, so we were in Bloomingdale's with the Abbey Road iPod. Like, that can't be beat for marketing. We were getting emails and phone calls galore that week. We were even in the back of those taxi cab ads in New York where you see video. Like, I had friends calling me from New York saying, I saw your iPods on the taxi ad network. I'm like, cool, didn't know about it, didn't pay for it. Better yet, I actually got paid for it. Still better yet. Fourth is harness the groundswell. I think that people get really caught up with Facebook Connect and Twitter. I swear that email is the best. Yes, you can get in the dumpster, and yes, you probably have to pay the extortionists that at Hotmail and all the other people who will say that your email will not be in a junk mailbox. To start, just don't spam people. Respect their request to discontinue on your list. But the bottom line is, people want to care about something. Give them something to be excited about. So I was the first customer for ever to purchase a pair of Tom's shoes. My buddy Blake started Tom's shoes. If you're not familiar with them, they're the first ever one-for-one gifting before one laptop per child. You buy a pair of shoes, they give a pair to a kid in originally Argentina, now 15 countries including America. They're on track to do 8 figures of revenue this year, like 5 years into their program. So 2 things. 1, when your friends do something, support it, right? 2, if you see that your friends have really good marketing people, hire them away from them. So I hired Blake's, he wasn't paying his VP of marketing enough, so I hired her. We're all copacetic. I play poker with Blake, it's cool. But hire good people. When you see people doing a good job, try to associate with people doing a good job. But by harnessing the groundswell, it means using tools like YouTube to host your video, using tools like Flickr to have pictures of every single cell phone you've ever engraved. Go to live events, take pictures of every single person and videotape the entire live event, get that up in there, tag it properly, forward it to anyone who was there, ask them to forward it to their friends. It's as simple as that. It's the same formula that the last panel showed you. It's just a real world person-to-person touch. I have internships at Cafe Press. If anyone is interested, that's my email address. You can email me your resume or talk to me after the show. Our chief competitor is founded by a Stanford alum, but we need more smart people working for my company so we can beat them. So we would like to continue to beat them, let me say. So touch base with me if you're interested in that.
That's great. And the competitor is Zazzle, right? Or you, I said it, oops. So, you mentioned a couple of things. One, there is different types of target when you do a PR campaign. You're going to have sort of the local, you're going to have the middle America. How do you sort of target or get ready for sort of the what I would call the Oprah effect, which is, you know, targeting the 40 million women, whatever, we're putting Oprah, which is considered to be middle America, and how do you sort of progress from where you are today, which is really sort of caring about the early adopters, Silicon Valley, sort of like Flickr did, like Twitter did, and what does that mean for you to actually grow and go to Oprah or go on Oprah?
So how am I preparing for Oprah?
Yeah. Well, how would one prepare for Oprah? Have you seen, you know, sort of very successful ways of doing that when you were at TechCrunch?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. So Twitter was around for, I think it started in 2006, I believe, and they only hit Oprah in spring of last year. So it was a good 3-year runway in order to get there. And the groundswell actually before Oprah was a factor was the political campaign of 2008. At least that's how it seemed from the outset, from the outside of it. And so really, I think celebrities sort of start to glom on to these services once they already see quite a bit of activity outside of sort of their celebritydom. And so, you know, even at that point, I think it seemed like Ev Williams' job was mainly going around talking to like Gavin Newsom and talking to celebrities and really putting a lot of his effort into actually signing these people up. So it was just a different phase of their marketing campaign when it was pretty advanced, I think, at that point. So it's not something that I actually think, you know, how do I get Oprah on it? I think you evolve into it once you get far enough up the curve where that's even feasible for you to think about. Because when it comes to celebrities, when we're talking about communication mediums or media, it's a great, Twitter, for example, is a great tool for celebrities to be celebrities because they're promoting themselves. And so they needed to have that base of sort of the audience there in order to make it worth their while. And so it's really just making sure enough people are on the site that would, you know, fawn at the celebrities before you even try to approach them. Because if I went to a celebrity today, I could be like, I got a bunch of nerds in San Francisco, good, you know, follow you, but they wouldn't care. So it's really making sure you have that base before you even attempt it.
Besides Twitter, from your time at TechCrunch, which company or which companies have really sort of impressed you by the way they mixed, you know, initial deployment, you know, bigger PR, bit of virality, and essentially shot to very, very large numbers of users and so on and so forth?
Startups seem to take their own paths, so it's interesting. Sometimes startups are sort of going underneath the radar for a while, and then they shoot up, like Zynga. I think Zynga was amassing a lot of momentum before TechCrunch and the others really perked up and was like, wow, like Zynga has tons of users and is making tons of money. So that's a recent one. I think they did it largely through targeted advertising on Facebook and just incredible viral mechanics. M&A, yeah. I mean, they're just like, they paid for their acquisition and they had great returns on it.
But that's the point they've made, which is that when your ARPU, your average revenue per user, is high enough, then driving, you know, a lot of user conversion through paid advertising actually works. And you know, the rumor is that they spend, you know, about 30% of their actual revenues, which is rumored to be in the hundreds of millions, into just buying users.
Yeah, it's, if they didn't have a paid like advertising component of their marketing, they wouldn't be nearly as close to where they are today. And a lot of startups don't actually advertise themselves to success. So Facebook's another, of course, obvious success story. And you didn't see Facebook banner ads on other sites. So it's a totally different strategy. You know, there's a number of companies, of course, that have been successful in the last couple of years. You know, I was there for a year and a half. And, you know, say Mint, of course. Mint was, sort of came out of the gates very strong with using conferences as, well, one conference in particular, the TechCrunch 40 conference, as their platform to get the word out, plus the SEO strategy. Others are sort of, they sort of stay within the tech underworld for a long, long time, where they sort of sort of launch out of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. There's no, with all this stuff, with my time at TechCrunch, I didn't come away with a sense of like there's a formula to achieve your growth and your monetization. It really depends on the type of product you're trying to sell.
And you can't you command PR. You can't sort of dictate it, or you can't sort of pay for it or get it. I mean,
yeah.
You can get a PR agency, you can get a PR firm, you can get those people who are gonna sort of try and get the writers actually cover them, but it's just not the way.
Yeah, in terms of how do you get on TechCrunch, I personally have not hired a PR firm, and I would advise probably most startups not to, because it means a lot to writers when they can talk to the CEO, when they can talk to the people who are actually in charge. And it's really about that personal connection. So I of course have a personal connection with people who work at TechCrunch because I work there, but the best people people we like to work
for TechCrunch before you do your startup.
Yeah.
So you could also bring your laser machine to TechCrunch parties like we did, and laser engrave Michael Arrington's cell phone and your cell phone, and
it's
hundreds of other, and take pictures of all of them in the process, right? And even if you're really lucky, get them to pay you to show up.
Yeah, that's a great alternative. Like no joke.
They throw parties. There's nothing stopping. You guys are 10 miles from every single party they throw.
Yeah,
or 60% of the parties they throw.
You want them to know your face, or you want to do something that like touches them. Like so, Jib Jab is this like animation thing, and Animoto is another sort of animation tool, and it's not. I mean, cool products, but it's not like ground.
What do you mean? Really cool products.
Really cool products. Yeah. But like, so Mike Arrington, he's in love with Animoto. Loves it. And you can make basically a little advertisement. You can make like music videos around your pictures. And I imagine initially they threw together a slideshow music video with his photos or something, and it meant something to him. And Jib Jab, which is like a comedy, you see like guys dancing around. Every half a year or so, or even more frequent than that, they put together one of their videos with all the TechCrunch writers in it. And so it's something that it's sort of like a gesture that matters to the writers, that makes you a little bit more personal. It also conveys what your product does immediately, so that they don't have to think to themselves, okay, you're using all these buzzwords, how do I actually understand what this does so I can explain it to my readers? So once again, it's really about not pitching, but really making a relationship of some sort.
Dave?
So, how important is it to have TechCrunch write about your company in terms of the overall success of your company?
So I think I can talk to that. TechCrunch will, if you sell custom iPods anyway, a decent story on TechCrunch will drive in the low thousands to your website. That's including like if you get a picture, like the best you can do is like low thousands in my experience. And low thousands, if you convert at 2%, can mean a couple dozen customers. And if those couple dozen customers happen to have a really cool baseball logo that says San Francisco on it or Dodgers on it, and then those people go back to their high schools and their high school friends see that cell phone that's so tripped out, then it has an impact much larger than, of course, its initial impact, which is the definition of virality, as you guys highlighted. It also does a couple other things. One, it gives you SEO. If you're a no-name startup, having a 7 or 8 page rank website linked to you is like gold, because all of a sudden everything else that you're doing listed, and that's part of what my last startup had started so well, is that we had websites like Marvel.com and ABC.com and everyone else linking out to us on a completely non-affiliate basis because they wanted to sell more of our product. And I think that when you go talk to a VC, I can say, hey Jeff, look at this, Michael Arrington thinks it's hot. You can push stuff.
Like it matters to us.
Do you want to get me, it doesn't hurt, right?
Well, no, it doesn't hurt, but typically, well, I won't go there, but it's cool.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get you a term sheet. You know?
Go there.
No, it doesn't get you a term sheet, but it might get you a phone call, which is really what all you ever want, is like your first foot in the door, because you don't have that network that we talked about yet.
So money in the bank, I had a dating site, Match.com had a dating site. I had twice their revenue. They had PR, they had PR stories, sold for the same amount of money we did. So I figured it cost me about $45 million not to get TechCrunch to write it.
So you would value it a lot.
It doesn't generate revenue. Like,
Right.
I mean,
There's
no,
There's
but it
creates
does generate
buzz.
a cap gain at the end of the process in perceived
Multiplier.
valuation.
Yeah. believe that.
Unless your product is targeting a technical user, like the major value of TechCrunch is for investors or influencers.
Yes. Yeah, it's essentially establishing your brand across, sort of a broad category, which a broad category of user readers will, into tech. But if your product is very focused on, you mentioned Dogster or Catster, thank you, another of my investments. Dogster and Catster doesn't get any value from TechCrunch per se. It's just a broad sort of brand establishment, because what they want is people who are passionate about animals, and they find on other types of destination sites or avenues. But it's good, but don't expect your company to be done because you have a TechCrunch article, because you have the TechCrunch like rise and then descent, and they won't most likely not come back. So the conversion issue is real.
It's like cocaine. It feels great for like a day, and you're like, no,
no retention.
and then it goes away.
So you're dealing with products which are sort of kind of techy, but not to take it sort of broad scope, and it's Cafe Press is huge. So what is your approach to PR? Do you try and work on PR, just get great products out with great examples and celebrities, so that
Sure.
the effect just works?
Yeah, so we have a program at TechCrunch that we call Culture Vulture, which means we have 300 million pieces of art.
At Cafe Press, you mean?
Yeah.
You said TechCrunch.
Oh, sorry, at Cafe Press, I don't work for TechCrunch. So at Cafe Press, we have 300 million pieces of art. So we have something relevant to anything that can happen. Before Haiti happened, we had hundreds of pieces of art dedicated to Haitian culture and Haitian flags and pro-Haitian and anti-Haitian and probably everything else. So if you want to create I'm Dick Cheney and I shot someone in the face t-shirt and sell it tomorrow, like the day after it happens, we have that solution for you. And so we're able to kind of jump on products, since we're print on demand and have 24-hour lead time on shipping something to someone. So I think that's the most powerful tool that we have, is just harnessing what's already happening. Oftentimes, news sites, New York Times, whatever, will cite our sales of John McCain versus Barack Obama t-shirts as some sort of an indicator of who's going to win an election. And anytime there's kind of a public debate over something, we get phone calls, incoming phone calls, which is great. At this scale, you get that. To be able to talk to the press and then talk to humanity that way.
This is actually a great point. If you happen to have some data that you can share with some kind of authenticity or authority to a journalist, as in, well, we sold 10,000 t-shirts and 6,000 were for Barack Obama, and just make that available to them as a data point, they will typically like it, provided that it's meaningful enough. And you will get those sort of random quotes in the press that is free PR, but great to establish your brand. And so if ever you can capture those data, remember, metrics are important for startups. If you can sort of turn that data into something meaningful for your PR strategy, it's actually a win-win.
It can actually also be a negative, and I'll give you an example of a negative that happened to both Cafe Press and the other company recently. There is a psalm somewhere in the Bible that effectively is trying to say that someone should basically murder the king. And I'm not proud of this, and we have removed this from our marketplace, as has our competitor, but pray for Barack Obama, psalm, whatever crazy psalm this was from the Bible, implying, one might say, that everyone go assassinate the president, which is not a message. So we're a marketplace for ideas and for thought, and so for the first 2 or 3 days we weren't sure how to handle it. It wasn't selling a lot. Most of the shopkeepers, when they realized what they were selling, took down the thing on their own, but there were still lots of news articles written about it. And so did that end up being a positive or negative from a cash flow perspective? I don't know. I know we didn't ship a single one of these. I do know that we got tons of hits because of that. Was it a negative perception for the consumer or a positive one? I would guess negative in most cases, unless you happen to, drill baby drill.
Any questions?
Yeah, so something like Facebook is viral per se because, if a friend joins, I get value out of that. But one of your products, I don't think it's viral per se. Actually, there is a factor of exclusivity that, I'd rather have my product and no one else because that makes me cooler. How do you deal with that, and how do you play a little bit with your consumer's mind?
So I think that's you brought up something pretty subtle nuance. So we created a lot of limited editions, to like we would get Shepard Fairey art that we would only use for certain cell phones, and you could only get it for a month. Or Hello Kitty kept having us rotate their art because they said that the girls who care about this followed, want multiple. And indeed, certain people would buy one every 6 weeks, right? Wish more of them did. I think that, however, it is inherently viral because just like seeing Barack Obama's picture on that poster is something that's like so visual, and then when you start seeing more and more of them, so if you're in a high school and all of a sudden 2 people have cool engraved cell phones or MacBooks or whatever, maybe this is something that's catching on. So there is some sort of a viral aspect to it, but it's not kind of this digital true multiplier that the dating sites and the Zyngas of the world kind of focus on, getting their conversions from 1.5 to 1.7 to 1.9 and making friction-free transactions, and kind of the bond trader aspect of it. It's not that. It's creating something that people want to have, like exactly what you brought up. And that's just, just like if you were a buyer at Williams-Sonoma, you would need to know what your customers want. And, I recommend trying to be data-driven, and you saw the homepage for our website. We didn't get to that homepage immediately. Like, there's been 400 iterations of that homepage in the last 2 years, literally. And when you find out that Star Trek's more popular than Alabama, and Alabama's more popular than Texas, you start to figure out what the right mix of products for your consumer is.
Question? Dave, you want to do something?
I guess I want to challenge the panel a little bit and say that sometimes I think this outbound strategy starts at home. I think one of the easiest ways to create press is to start your own blog and write regularly.
Yep.
And that one of the cheapest things a lot of customers can do is, a lot of entrepreneurs can do is start writing a blog themselves, or hire an out-of-work newspaper person or students to just write regularly about the keywords and the stories and kind of problems and solutions that you're thinking about. Particularly for user-generated content sites, I think that's really easy, because all you really need to do is filter the content that's coming into your site and then republish that stuff. But I feel like the exercise for a lot of folks is really looking at keywords and images that are relevant, and you can actually do that quite easily. Look at do Google AdWords searches in your company name, your competitors' names, your product names, your keywords and problems and solutions, and start building this rough set of 20 to 100 keywords that are relevant to your audience, and then start using those in the headlines of your blog posts, right? And really, these start from sort of landing page tests where you're testing for, user reactions to copy and visual, and what sort of converts, both on sort of initial reaction and then sustained reaction, and then starting to collect strategies around those copy and images that you use throughout your email subject lines, copy on your site, blog posts, tweets, traditional marketing campaigns. You really want to sort of use this for a very tactical SEO ranking strategy, but also more general understanding of what customer emotion and power is driven from those use of images and copy. So
yeah, I would even go, so I would use that exact tool, and I would say go one step more Hollywood and make video, because video is a high enough barrier to entry, even with a flip video camera, and even with these cool little HD cameras that cost $900. Like, there is a level of complexity that keeps out 99% of lazy people. And so the extent that you can just be one step less than lazy. So what we did is we got the company that made the laser engravers and the company that made the ink that turned stainless steel black to give us $5 grand each. This is when we had nothing. And we pocketed $5 grand. And then we gave $5,000 to a friend of mine who was an out-of-work director and had him make 10 videos. And we laser engraved matzah with Happy Passover messages. We laser engraved bologna with Dick Cheney's face. We laser engraved pumpkins, so we had one for Halloween. Christmas cookies with Santa's face, something for the whole calendar. We did it all in 1 week, and for $5,000, including props and even sexy models in some cases. And then we had video for the next 12 months, and we would push that over our blog. So I think that the keyword and SEO stuff is very, very easy, super low-hanging fruit, especially to the extent that you're not in a super developed industry. For example, 3 weeks ago, I decided to start a gluten-free matzah company because my wife is gluten intolerant, allergic to wheat. And there's already 2 companies that were selling this probably for a decade. I don't know, one in the UK, and they're Orthodox Jews, and they're like super good at making great matzah. It's not that hard to make matzah, though. I went to a baker and asked them to make me some matzah. But I created a website that rose to #1 in Google PageRank over a 3-week period by properly keywording the whole thing and just being very matzah focused and gluten-free matzah focused. And so now, for the 10,000 people who actually search for gluten-free matzah in this coming Passover, we are going to have matzah for them, and I don't think that there's a way we can lose money. We won't make much, but it's a fun side project.
That's a great way for you as well to discover who are the influencers, so the people you want to try and pitch or talk to with your PR hat on, so that they can sort of look at your product and eventually sort of talk about it, because those are the people who will sort of rank high in Google. So it's important for you to figure out what are the key important keywords that you want to cover in your own post and other people's.
Is that video strategy, does that work because there's enough search volume in YouTube, or because Google ranks a blog post higher when it has a video embedded in it? Or
I think it's because since there's infinite web pages, including people's blogs, which take 2 minutes to set up, that by going the extra mile, you're already getting rid of the 99% of people who were too lazy to create a video. And so, yes, I do believe that Google...
Video is hard. Like, reasonable, good quality production video is not super simple.
All right, I live in Hollywood and I've got plenty of friends to do it, so maybe I'm taking it too easy. You can use Animoto if you don't want to use complex video tools, and you can do it with still photos and create something that's a pseudo video, write a PowerPoint effectively. So there are ways to get around it, but I think it's a little bit of Google gives juice to it, and also it's just that most people can't, because it is a little more complex than just writing a post. You're right.
But it's variable. It's worth the effort.
Okay, one last question. Along those lines, would you translate any of them, any of those things if you were trying to start a business services company? Or do you think the same pretty much still applies?
I think you need to look more professional at the end of the day, right? Consumer-facing companies generally have, very in-your-face sites, whereas business-to-business sites generally have a catalog feel, and I don't think that's necessarily good. I think that most B2B sites suck because those people haven't innovated, or visually suck. But I think that calling people, opening your Rolodex, opening friends' Rolodexes, and cold calling people is the #1 business tool that you can use. I think it beats having a cool viral loop. I think it beats having a line at the bottom of your emails. And I think that for me, and the way I try to start companies, business development has got to be a cornerstone of the thing, in part because it's my strength. And so I try to seek projects that play to that strength. To the extent that you're not good at it, you should find you should either get good at it, or you should find a friend that's good at it to do it on your behalf, because especially for B2B stuff, you're going to knock on doors. No one's going to come to your website.
But to answer your question, yes, I think that as we see the consumerization of the enterprise, it's the same sort of tools and loops and mechanisms will sort of apply. They just have to be targeted towards a specific audience, which is sort of the B2B and people in the enterprise. But the whole notion of adoption from users who happen to be workers in an enterprise is sort of the way for very interesting product to just percolate under the radar of IT and below the authorization of the CIO.
You need to hit the decision maker at the end of the day.
Great. On that note, Julio, I wanted to thank you very, very much, and this panel is extremely. It was just spectacular.